Well, hello there. This is a different slight format of video. I'm currently in the middle of a 3-day drive, traveling over 2,300 kilometers, 24 hours worth of driving. Yeah, and I'm on day 2, and I thought, since I'm going for this drive and I'm going to be alone, since my wife's not with me on the particular drive, she decided to fly down ahead of me. I thought perhaps that I would think about watches, and if I'm going to be thinking about watches, why not then talk a little bit about watches? So that's what we're doing today. So, hello, you're watching James. My name's James. You're watching me. And I'm going to be watching the road today because I'm currently on a major highway, or a big highway that travels through the outback of Australia. Excuse me, I'm going to put my sunglasses on because it is quite bright. And I'm going to be paying attention to what's in front of me because there are some dangers when you drive on these sorts of roads. We're driving at a rather quick speed, but there's also a lot of wildlife that can jump out in front of you. So I'm going to be paying more attention to that than this. So if I do trail off onto some random thought, or if I stop talking, that's the reason why, because I'm paying more attention to the road than to you guys today. Sorry about that. Now, I thought this might be quite an interesting opportunity to make a slightly different format of video, and I apologise if the vision is shaking, I apologise if the sound is terrible, but I'm in a car doing 110 kilometres an hour. There's not much I can do about that, and I thought it might be something a little bit different and interesting to do. And I have been thinking a lot about watches, strangely enough, and I've actually come up with 3 things that I've been thinking about a lot at the moment, and I thought this might be a good opportunity to talk about those 3 things. Now, I do have another camera set up over there, and I'm hoping it captures what I'm seeing, so you get to come along for this drive with me, or at least part of this drive with me. And I'm going to divide this video up into 3 sections, or 3 different videos, but I'm probably going to record them all at the same time, so you'll probably see one and then the other and then the other, and it's just a continuation of what I'm currently doing whilst I'll keep the video running. But the first thing I want to talk about was these 2 watches that I'm wearing today. I don't tend to wear 2 watches at the same time, but because I'm travelling down and to where I normally live, at the moment I'm living away for work, but I'm going down to visit some family and some friends and do a little bit of a holiday, but we're going to be down there for quite a long period of time. I want to take a bunch of my watches with me, and I'm actually bringing 10 watches with me. Now, in regards to my content, I've actually pre-recorded a bunch of episodes, so besides the few random videos like this that I'm going to make and produce, you will then see my normal sort of content as well. And I'd like you to let me know actually what you think about this video as well, because it'd be quite nice to do some different occasional videos to insert it in amongst my normal content. You know, not all the time, but do something a little bit different. Sort of captures what I'm doing, what I'm thinking, what I'm seeing, something, just occasionally. So let me know, in a comment down below. So why is it where I'm wearing these 2 specific watches today, and why am I wearing them whilst going on a big long drive? Well, it's mainly because these 2 I just couldn't replace. The others in my collection that I'm bringing with me, the other 8, they're watches that I absolutely love. They're coming with me for very good reasons, but physically I could replace them easy, and emotionally I could also replace them. And financially it would be disappointing and upsetting if I lost them, or if they were stolen, or they were damaged, but they're replaceable. Whereas these 2 watches are not replaceable. This is my IWC Spitfire, and this is my Mont Blanc Nicholas Roussek. And the reason why I couldn't replace them is not because they couldn't physically be replaced, because they can be. You can buy these fairly easily online. They're on Chrono 24. I bought both of these watches on Chrono 24. I think, no, maybe I bought this one on eBay. But they're physically replaceable, but emotionally they're not replaceable. And they're not emotionally replaceable because I have this emotional connection to these 2 particular watches, and as I wear these watches, it does make me think about these emotional connections that we sort of form with watches, and for the different reasons that we have these emotional connections. And you'll have to excuse me, but I'm going to drink some coffee in a can. Not the best coffee, but it is caffeine, so I'll take it today. I've got a couple of emotional connections to some of the watches in my collection, and they remain in my collection because I have these emotional connections, but also because I love the watches themselves as well. But there are different reasons why I have these different connections to them. One of them is my Homage's Hydro Conquest, a watch that I really like. It's a lovely, lovely watch. But I've got a few reasons why I'm connected to that one beyond just enjoying it and liking that watch. I ended up buying that one for my 40th birthday, and it wasn't just me buying it. It was my family, my friends, and my wife. It was kind of like an accumulation 40th present, and that made it a little bit important to me. But what was even more important to me about that watch is going on the journey to try and find that watch, because if I was going to spend that amount of money at that time, which was a lot for me to spend on a watch, it made me look and research watches more than I had done before. I'd been loving watches for years, but I hadn't really dived into it particularly. But diving into finding that watch made me aware of the watch community, made me aware of Redbar groups, made me aware of YouTube reviews. I hadn't really been really aware of them before. I think I'd watched a few YouTube reviews, but I hadn't really then found entertainment in them. Whereas when I went on the journey to find that watch, I then started being entertained by the YouTube channel, and it then resulted in me starting this channel. So if it wasn't for that watch and that little sort of purchase of that watch, I probably wouldn't have this channel. So it's important to me for that reason. I then also wore that watch when I got married, so it's a further sort of connection there too. So this one watch has some layers to it, which I think is quite nice. I'm hoping that camera stays in the right direction. Looks like it's pointing out the window now. Let me just move that back. I've had to plug it into the power as well. But then I have my father's watch. His Seiko 7139. I think it's the Australian version of the Pogue. And I remember him wearing that when I was a kid. And through the 80s, I saw him wearing it. He used it to help teach me to tell the time. And quite a few years ago, when I really did fall down this rabbit hole of watches, I asked him if he still had that watch, and I was sure he did. And it had been sitting in a box for 20 or 30 years. He said, "Yeah, you can have it." So I thought that was quite cool. And at the time, I didn't even know what it was. So when I got it, I had it restored because it was not in a very good condition at that time. I then found out it was this Pogue, or the Australian version of the Pogue, and I thought that was quite a nice story. Plus, it was the watch that he wore. Plus, it was the watch that I sort of learned to tell the time on. So it's nice that I've got that connection for a watch in my collection too. But then there's these two, and these have a slightly different reason why I've got a connection to them, and there's a bit of an overlapping story with them as well. And I'm not going to go too much into it because it's a bit of a story, and it's not something that I feel the need to share on a YouTube channel or a YouTube video. But effectively, last year, my mother got sick and she ended up passing away, and we were given a little bit of forewarning. We didn't know exactly when it was all going to happen, but we knew it was coming, and we knew it was coming soon. And she lived quite a few hours away from where I live, so I just jumped in the car and raced down there to be with her. And I knew when I was racing down there, I didn't know how long I was going to be there. It was going to be a couple of days, it was going to be a couple of weeks, and I just decided, well, I'll just grab one watch. I don't know how long I'm going to be there. I also don't want to be thinking too much about that. I want to concentrate on my mother, and I grabbed this one, the IWC, and I ended up being down there a couple of weeks with her every day, and we talked about this watch, and she wore this watch. It was a nice sort of thing to talk about, but also for me to concentrate on, to be a little bit of a distraction at that time. And I sort of ended up building a bit of a connection with her, but then the time started to elongate a little bit, and I was away from my wife at the time, and so she was going to come down and support me and be there with my mother as well. And at that time, this watch arrived in the post, this Mont Blanc. I actually ordered it prior to all this happening. I wasn't aware this was going to happen. It was not something that we could have completely foreseen. But it had arrived, and I was really excited because I put a lot of time and energy and effort into thinking about this purchase, and I really wanted to see it. So she brought it down when she came to spend some time with me in those last few days, and it gave me another little boost of, oh, this cool, interesting watch. And again, got to talk to my mother about it, and she got to try it on, and she was like, oh, this is interesting. And she was very excited for me about my excitement for watches, so that was very nice. And wearing these watches during that time, as difficult as that time was, I don't know, I sort of then developed this little bond with them. And what's quite interesting about that is when I wear these watches now, I don't specifically think about that time or that the positives or the negatives of that situation. I just feel the bond to the watches. And because I've had that connection with these watches, and I've got those different connections with those other two watches, and because as a result those watches have now stayed in my collection partly because of those connections, I've started thinking about, well, how could I manufacture that connection? Because I'm always looking for ways to enjoyed that watch, but I'm probably about to sell it soon, to be honest, but because that connection, that emotional connection didn't form at all. I like it, I enjoy it, I'm glad that I purchased it, but that manufacturing of that connection hasn't then really occurred. That camera's moved again. I've got it plugged in at the moment because it's running out of batteries, but then the cord's pulling on it. I just wanted to show you the road ahead of me because I think that might make this video a little bit more interesting to see the journey that I'm on physically driving, because I'm not going to overproduce these videos, I'm not going to over-edit these videos, I'm just going to put them out as they are and just throw a bit of that footage in to make it a little bit more interesting. Now I've got some more thoughts about what I want to talk about